Okay, guys. What I wanted to do today was give an overview of a Kotlin multi-platform project. Um, Primarily one that I guess at this point you could call it a Kotlin JS project, but a project that uses Kotlin for a web page. So I'm just going to I'm not going to do any development during this presentation or this video, but I'm going to give a walkthrough of a project and ideally run it. So I think the first thing that I wanted to start out and show you all was um, the dependencies. These are two of the dependencies, this Kotlin standard library for JavaScript that I needed, and I also needed this Kotlin X HTML JavaScript dependency, and this one looks duplicate, but I don't know what the difference between these two are. I just realized that, but the project works. And I did get intro. I did get the idea for this project from a blog post. The blog post right now, I can't remember, but there is another repo that has that I cloned this from, and you can see it references this project that I'm going to walk you through today. And if I remember correctly, here we go. Getting hands dirty with Kotlin JS. So apologies for that. But here's the blog article. This guy walks through the basics of the project and how he set it up, and then he has a repo with the project itself, but it doesn't build. So what I did out of the box is I set it up so that it'll build, and then I posted that repository on GitHub. So let's walk through the project. We've got our dependencies here. For some reason, we've got two Kotlin standard library JavaScript dependencies. I don't think we need both of these, but I needed HTML, JS added, and I must have copied and pasted both these at the same time. This follows an MVP pattern to a certain extent, so we can see that we've got an interface here that defines a joke contract. And what this web page basically does is you put in your name in a text field, and then it goes to joke generator services, and it enters your name in place of whatever the joke is, or as the subject of the joke. And so we've got a view defined here, and we've got a few things. We've got a show joke method on the view, and then a show loader and a hide loader. A lot of people just will have these as a singular one, show loading, and then a bool here. The initial author decided to have separate methods. And then we've got a presenter here. We've got one that has attached the view. A lot of times people will pass the view in as a constructor to the presenter. The author here has put an attached method in, and then we've got a load jokes that takes a string, and it's called input. I have a feeling that this input is going to be the name. So let's go to our next class here. We've got our actual page, and we can see that we pass in the presenter here, or the interface, the joke contract interface for the presenter, and it extends view. So that means it's going to implement these methods that are defined in the view interface. Or we could also say it implements the view interface. So the first thing it does is it goes and it inside the document that and then you load it as a script inside your web page. So the first thing it tries to do when it's loaded as a script inside that web page is get access to the document, and then find the element in that document that has the IDE root. And so let's go over, in our instance, that document's going to be called index.html, and we only have one thing And inside our body, we only have one thing defined as root, and it's a div. I'm not that familiar with HTML, but it's of div type. It's a div element and has ID root. And then it's got this untitled.js script, and that's the name of our project. And that's what the output of this project is compiled into, is a big script called untitled.js. It's important that you define the script after you define the element that it's referencing, or else when the script starts, it will look for the div. From my experience, it'll look for the div define with the element that has the ID root, and it won't find it because it hasn't gotten there yet. I could be wrong, but I did find something that that kind of indicated that. And then we've got a bunch of HTML that we create here in Kotlin. So we've got a loader div, and it's of type HTML element, and it extends. I guess it's a paragraph here. I don't know what P stands for. It's probably shorthand, so it is shorthand for paragraph. And it has a loading text in there. And then it's got an init function. So here we're just defining a couple properties, or a couple of variables inside our jokes page class. And then we've got an init function, and inside that, it creates a heading that says place your name of size 3, and then a form inside there. And this is really cool that we're using Kotlin to define HTML. So we get all the type matching of Kotlin and functional programming inside Kotlin, but we're able to create a web page out of it. And so we've got an input field of ID name, and the type is input text. And we've got another input field of type submit, and then we define an onSubmit function. And then it takes the event, and it looks like it gets the element, so it gets the name element, and then if that value is not empty, it loads jokes with that element. So if we go here, we can see the contract. This says input. This would really be better named as name. So if we go back here, and this might be better named as name element, so that way we get an idea of what we're working with. And so we grab the value from the name element if it's not empty, and then we load that value. We call our presenter load jokes method with that value. Event.prevent default, I'm not certain what that does, but I'll leave that up to the reader. And then what we do is we take the root element, and then we append this div which we just defined here, and it'll be more obvious when we run this what it does. Okay, so let's look at our presenter. Our presenter, we attach the view, and then we've got that load jokes function, which I just renamed the input as a string. And so when it's loading the jokes, it calls on the view to show loader, and then it calls getAsync, this getAsync function here, with the URL with the name input here, and then it parses it. So JSON.parse, and we've got our type here. It's of string and joke value. So we'll look into that earlier, and then we hide the loader once we get it back, and then we show the joke. And so getAsync, it creates a simple XML HTTP request, calls method get on this endpoint, and then on the callback we invoke the value, the response text. And what happens there is this is actually the callback definition inside here. So when we get it, we parse that using JSON parse into type random joke response. And that's got a string and then joke value. Joke value has an ID and a joke. So it looks like we might be getting back multiple jokes, but I don't know. So let's see here. We've got joke. And it's got string and joke value. So maybe there just is one. I don't know. We'll figure that out. I haven't seen this before, this XML HTTP request, but it looks like it's a Kotlin implementation of a HTML library API. So here we've got our data classes, and what we would typically do is we would put our data classes inside a data package. So we can do that, or a model. Let's call it model. And hopefully this doesn't break. Cannot move from multiply source files. One thing I have found is the IDE support has been pretty good, but there has been some hiccups here and there. And then main is really like kind of the main function from a Java program. And so this is actually what's executed initially in that HTML or in that untitled.js JavaScript. So we call that main function. It's in JavaScript, but here's how it's defined inside Kotlin. We instantiate a jokes presenter, and then we pass that jokes presenter into the jokes page, and then we attach jokes page, which implements the view contract to that presenter. I guess this is one way to do it. Another way would be, and maybe this is an okay way to do it. So let's run this guy and see what happens. So I've seen Gradle, so we should be able to run this. We can see it runs just like, if you're an Android dev, this might be familiar to you. We're in IntelliJ, and we just hit play. So we're compiling Kotlin.js. So let's see what happens here. So place your name and get a random joke. So this is HTML. Where did we see this earlier? We saw this in our jokes presenter. No, we saw this in our jokes page, which is like the view of our page, or the activity if we were doing Android development, or perhaps view controller if you're doing iOS. So we saw place your name and get a random joke, and it's inside this h3 element, which is a heading or a tag. So let's put this right here, and we can see, okay, we've got this input field right here, and the ID of it is name. It's an input text, and we've got submit query. That's just the default implementation of this input type submit. And on submit function, so that seems to be something that's defined on a form type. So let's go here, common attribute group facade, event unit. So get, so it can set, and so on submit. I don't know how this is actually implemented, but it looks like it, if you have a form element, then you can define an on submit function, which is what we do here, and we take the event from that. We don't really care what the event is, but inside that event, what we do is we try to read the value of this field. So if we do, and then if it doesn't have something, we can see right here, if it's not empty, we call load jokes, else we call window alert, please place some name. So let's do that. My name is Darren. I'm going to put Darren in there. Let's submit. We could see that the loading came up. So, and it looks like one after another it will show these. So you can see that we're appending a child each time we set a joke. So let's put a breakpoint in here. I wonder if I can attach. I don't know how to attach a debugger. I think we could do it through the Firefox debugging console, but we won't do that today. So we can see it passed our name into this HTTP request, API request using XML HTTP request, and then it got that response back. And when it got it, it hid the loader, and then it showed the joke, which appends. If we go to the implementation here, it creates this text element and then appends it to the root element. So Darren has banned rainbows from the state of North Dakota. In the Bible, Jesus turned water into wine, but then Darren turned that wine into beer. All right. So that's basically it. I'm going to run it in debug mode, see if debug even works in this. But you can see that we were able to use a very familiar language like Kotlin, if you come from Android development, and develop a web page. It's rudimentary at this point, but functional and very accessible. So my breakpoint didn't hit even though it was shown. But that's okay. I think we need to debug it in the web developer console here in Firefox. So I was really excited about this because I'm working on a project that integrates with JavaScript, and I'd like to define the integration in Kotlin and copy over the JavaScript implementation from the output of this, of Kotlin.js. And that'll allow me to do the development of both the Android side and the JavaScript side in Kotlin with type safety and all those kind of things, and without having to in isolation develop the JavaScript side of the implementation and the native Android side. I can do it all in one place and then just copy the output bundle, that JavaScript file, and the assets over to the JavaScript side, know it's safe, know it's sound, and have that integration done in my opinion, a much cleaner way with a much more desirable language, in my opinion. So thanks for watching. Hopefully get some Flutter videos up here again soon, but if not, I appreciate you and thank you.